In 1994, Mexico's World Cup knockout curse began with something almost too strange to believe. During their round of 16 match against Bulgaria, a defender crashed into the goalpost so hard it snapped. 7 minutes. Officials replaced the entire goal. Mexico eventually lost on penalties. The goalpost was fixed in 7 minutes. Mexico's World Cup problem has taken 32 years. Mexico has qualified for 17 World Cups. Only Brazil, Germany, Italy, and Argentina have qualified more times. They have reached the quarterfinals twice. Both times, they were the host nation. Every other time, for 32 consecutive years, Mexico reached the round of 16 and lost. 7 times. Same round, same result. Mexicans have a name for this. El Quinto Partido. The 5th game, the match that never comes. But here's what nobody tells you. This is not a ghost story. The curse has a blueprint, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. 7 exits, 7 opponents, 7 different reasons the exit happened. But pay attention to this, because the pattern only becomes visible when you look at who Mexico actually faced. 1994, Bulgaria, lost on penalties. 1998, Germany, lost 2-1. 2002, United States, lost 2-0. 2006, Argentina, lost in extra time to a volley so beautiful it belongs in a museum. 2010, Argentina, lost 3-1. 2014, Netherlands, lost 2-1. 2018, Brazil, lost 2-0 after the most euphoric group stage win in Mexican history, beating Germany, then going home anyway. Look at that list again. Across those 7 exits, Mexico repeatedly ran into football giants. Germany, Argentina twice, the Netherlands, and Brazil. Even when the opponent was not a giant, the result was the same. The wall stayed in place. Is that a curse? Or is that a bracket that kept delivering the same brutal verdict? The answer, the real answer, is that it's both. And that distinction matters more than anything else in this story. But here is the part the bracket explanation cannot cover. Why in 32 years did Mexico never once produce a knockout performance good enough to make the opponent irrelevant? This is the section nobody makes. Because to tell it honestly, you have to say something uncomfortable about a league Mexico loves. Liga MX is one of the most financially powerful football leagues in the Americas. Sold-out stadiums, passionate fan bases, wages high enough to attract players like Sergio Ramos and James Rodriguez in the final years of their careers. Pay attention to this. That last sentence is the problem. For decades, Liga MX was rich enough and comfortable enough that Mexico's best players stayed home instead of leaving for Europe's most brutal competitive environments. Hugo Sanchez went to Real Madrid in the 1980s, won 5 consecutive La Liga titles, scored 38 goals in one season, was one of the best strikers on earth. He was the exception. And the fact that he remains the exception decades later tells you everything. After him, Liga MX's financial pull meant most Mexican players never spent formative years being dismantled and rebuilt inside the Bundesliga or the Premier League or Serie A at its peak. The league was strong enough to pay them, not always ruthless enough to harden them. Think about what that means for a knockout tournament. A World Cup round of 16 is not a test of whether you can play good football. It is a test of whether you have been broken and rebuilt enough times to function when everything is on the line. European club football does that to players. A comfortable domestic league, no matter how financially powerful, does not. And then something else broke. In 2020, Liga MX suspended promotion and relegation. Not because the league was thriving, because it needed protecting. The clubs that should have been fighting for survival were instead guaranteed safety. Merit, the thing that sharpens players, was partially removed from the system. Mexico didn't just build a comfortable league. It built a league that was, in some ways, too comfortable to produce what the World Cup actually requires. But there is something else, something harder to see in a spreadsheet that sits underneath all of this. In 2018, Rafael Marquez stood in front of the Mexican press before the round of 16 and said, "Do not have any doubt that this team is not thinking about the Quinto Partido." Read that sentence again. He used 11 words to tell you the team wasn't thinking about the one thing that required 11 words to deny. Mexican football has spent 30 years saying some versions of this. Deny the curse, refuse to name it, move on. And in doing so, it confirmed the one thing already in the room. That is what psychological weight actually looks like. Not panic, not paralysis. The 11-word denial that proves the thought was already there. Mexico had 12 different coaches in 9 years before 2015. 12, that is not a coaching problem. That is a federation that kept resetting instead of building, kept looking for someone to fix the curse instead of addressing the system that produced it. And then 2022 arrived. Mexico went to Qatar and didn't reach the round of 16 for the first time since 1978. The curse didn't just repeat, it mutated. The wall that Mexico had been hitting for 30 years moved one round earlier. The Quinto Partido became the Cuarto Partido, the fourth game they couldn't reach. A country that had defined itself by one specific failure suddenly faced a different, worse question. Were they still the team capable of even reaching the place where the curse usually activated? Hugo Sanchez is the clearest symbol of what Mexico's system cost. At Real Madrid in the 1980s, he was one of the best strikers in the world. Pichichi, 4 consecutive seasons, 38 goals in a single La Liga campaign. Still in the top 10 highest scoring seasons in the history of Spanish football. He played for Mexico at the 1978 World Cup, the 1986 World Cup, the 1994 World Cup. Mexico never reached a quarterfinal in any of them. A player producing numbers that elite, in a club environment that elite, and the system around the national team couldn't convert it into a single knockout win in 3 tournaments. That gap between what the individual produced and what the collective achieved is Mexico's entire World Cup story compressed into one career. The mine kept producing extraordinary ore. The factory kept failing to smell it. 2026 is different in one specific way. Mexico's squad now includes at least 14 players based at clubs outside Mexico: Milan, Fulham, Fenerbahce, Atletico Madrid. The old stay-home model is weakening. The pipeline to Europe's competitive environments that the system resisted for decades is finally opening. Mexico beat Ecuador 2-0 in the round of 32, their first World Cup knockout win since 1986. 40 years, and now they face England at the Azteca in front of 80,000 people. The 2 times Mexico reached the quarterfinals, they were the host nation. The crowd was theirs. The pressure was familiar. The geography was home. This is the 3rd time Mexico co-hosts a World Cup. For 32 years, Mexico stood outside the same door. Different coaches, different generations, different opponents. Same door. El Quinto Partido, the 5th game. For a long time, it looked like a curse. But curses do not suspend promotion and relegation. Curses do not keep players comfortable. Curses do not build systems that almost work, but not quite. The pattern was not the curse. The pattern was what the door was made of. And now, in 2026, Mexico is standing in front of it again, at home, with more players tested abroad, with a knockout win finally behind them, and with a country asking the same question it has asked for 30 years. ECC, what if we do?